Well, happy Tuesday afternoon, everyone. Welcome. So lovely to see you. Glad to see you all from wherever you are joining us. And whether you're a Scholé Academy instructor, or a Scholé Academy tutor, or a Scholé Academy parent, or just a friend who found out about us, however you're finding us, we are so happy that you're here. I'm Joylyn Blake, and I'm the director of Scholé Academy, but I am just as you are, my friends, today, mostly a listener and a discussion participant. I am delighted that my friend Dr. Fransell Riley is the featured speaker today. She's going to present some great content to us, and then we'll have a time for us to get together and to chat about what it is that's been said and shared. Okay? So, first of all, Dr. Riley, thanks for doing this. How are you doing today?
So wonderful.
Well, um, Francel and I actually have met in real life person because we live in the same general metroplex. It's always fun to meet people that you only knew through Zoom. Let me tell you, people are never the same height as one might expect. I'm not going to give it away, but just imagine what you think maybe Francel's height is. It won't be what you expect, my friends. Uh, but as Francella and I have gotten to know one another and share and talk, and I have really, really just continued to grow in my respect for her. If you don't know, um, Francelle, she is the chair of our math department. And in that seat, she's been with Scholé Academy for a long, long time, much longer than I have been with Scholé Academy. And as you also may know, like classical academic press under which Scholé Academy sits, math is one curricular line that is not yet developed. It's in process, folks. But it's not yet out there on the market. So Dr. Riley has been in so many respects the real architect of kind of how to teach math classically at Scholé Academy. So I'm going to take just a minute to kind of read her bio and then frame how the discussion will kind of go today. And I invite you, as you're listening and as you're engaging the discussion, feel free to kind of use the chat if you need to save some questions or jot some things down. And then we're definitely going to have a time to interact over the ideas. Okay. So here, one more thing that I'll frame and then I'll read Dr. Riley's bio. So if you've been with us since the beginning, you know Ash White was the first one to share with us some of her reflections over podcast, a retreat that she went to, and other things about just AI, where it's taking us, where some of that backdrop of things, and we interacted about that. Ash was not the voice of authority for Scholé Academy or classical academic press, but she had great reflections that we took away from. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke on Paul Kingsnorth's book Against the Machine. By the same token, I and my opinions shared in relation to that were not the authoritative voice of Scholé Academy and Classical Academic Press. They were reflections that I had taken away and that we shared together. And today, Dr. Riley is not the authoritative voice and the sum total position of our approach. But what I love about all of these voices chiming in is that it gives each one of us, as parents, as instructors, as independent contractors, all of that, the opportunity to grapple with these technological tools, digital developments, and our rightful aims as humans, as followers of Christ, living in the contemporary world in which we find ourselves. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and you're going to hear some of Francell's thoughts on these matters, and we're going to be able to kind of engage on that with her. Okay, so Dr. Fransell Riley is chair of the math department. She spent most of her career working as a quantitative analyst. She earned her PhD in mathematics from the University of Texas at Arlington with every intention of remaining in corporate America. Though she enjoyed her work, she ultimately responded to an internal call to pursue a passion for educating students, including her own children. Side note, Dr. Riley and I had some little crossovers in some educational institutions when our kids were really, really young. And I remember speaking to Francelle about like she has all this depth of mathematical knowledge, but the ability to translate that to young minds in creative ways really lit her fire. And I love knowing that about her. So, while teaching, she noticed that her natural teaching style aligned almost perfectly with the concepts in classical education. She takes a holistic approach to teaching and she involves her students in discussions that are aimed at developing a deeper understanding of the concept being taught, with the desire that student learning extend beyond simply memorizing algorithms. Francel has a passion for mathematics and seeks to share that passion with the next generation. But beyond math, Francel enjoys spending time with her husband and their two sons, and they're all athletes and nature lovers, and they enjoy participating in sports, hiking, exploring nature, traveling. And when they aren't enjoying God's gorgeous creation, you can find them indoors reading or, get this, watching reruns of Star Trek, which, there's just all kinds of layers of cool to who Dr. Riley is. So, Francel, we're so glad that you're here today and you're going to share with us from your perspectives about how we needn't fear tech tools, but maybe we can utilize them wisely. So, with that, I hand it to you, my friend.
Thank you. I don't know if people who watch Star Trek will be described as cool, but I'll take it.
I have to say that because my husband is a Trekkie as well, and my
Hey,
youngest daughter has started to like, she's like,
yes,
Mom,
pass it
Star
on.
Trek was like it was like ahead of its time.
Yes. All right, and you know what? We're not there yet. We're not teleporting people across the universe, so we got a ways to go. But yes, today is about, technology is with us. My mother graduated college with a computer science degree. When she majored in computer science, when she told the people around her that she was going to major in computer science, the response of the people in her hometown was, computers are just a fad. You're wasting your time. Yeah, letting that sink in. That's what she was told when she decided to major in computer science. It was the new thing. It's just a fad. Technology is with us. Those people were wrong then, and to think that it's going to go away now, it's just not going to go away. So we need to know how to use it, and we need to know how to use it wisely. And so that's what this discussion is about. I walk you through some of the processes that I go through when I think about if there is technology that can be a solution to a problem or enhance student learning or even enhance what I'm able to do as an instructor. And then I'll give you also some little lessons learned or things to watch out for, some pitfalls that could occur as you look at these incorporating technology. And also as a parent, some things that I have found helpful as a parent in, guiding my children in their use of technology. So I have a little presentation that I will share, and that'll, just be the first part of the meeting. And then after that, we open it up to discussion. Uh-oh. Just a moment.
While Francelle gets her tech set and she's going to share the screen, I want to just say a special welcome to all the other math teachers. This is not math specific, but I see you, math teachers. I see you, Miss Royals and Mr. Robinson and Miss Reese Miller and all the other fine folks. I'm so glad to see you today and welcome.
All right. So, yes, incorporating technology wisely. The process that I go through, can be traced all the way back to my third grade teacher. She taught me this thing that I just loved. And it was who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. And I just loved walking around saying that. I would just walk around who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. And even today, when I look at advertisements or things like that, I said, they're missing the where or they're missing the when. When you share information, you have to share all of this. And so when I think about technology and if it can enhance my student learning, I go through this who, what, when, where, why, and how. Actually, I do include the how in how I evaluate a piece of technology. So I won't go through, I won't read all of this to you, but I want to give you an idea of the process. This is 3 different tech tools that I have analyzed in the past. The first one is a virtual whiteboard, using a virtual whiteboard in my classes. That has a green light or a shaded green because that was a go. Proceed with that. And then the second is a practice problem generator. So I'm not, these are tech tools in general. These aren't specific brands. So I'm not sharing with you specific brands because there's a lot of brands out there that could work. These are just the tool itself. So there's a lot of virtual whiteboards you could choose from. There's also a lot of practice problem generators that you could choose from. These are websites that provide practice problems to students. They don't help them solve it. They just, if a student wants to go practice solving equations, this website will give them equations to solve. And then it will show them if they did it correctly or not and moves on. It doesn't do anything AI or anything like that. It's almost like having a textbook on your computer, but you have unlimited questions because a textbook only has limited questions. You may only get 20 questions in a chapter, but using one of these problem practice generators, you get unlimited questions. That is yellow because proceed with caution. Yes, it can be very helpful, but there are some things you need to be aware of. And then the red, the AI tutoring tool, I put a red on that because as I evaluated it, I decided that that's not something that should be utilized. So let's talk about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So who is this product designed to benefit? That's the very first thing I ask because sometimes a product can look like it's designed for a student, but it's really benefiting the teacher more so than the student, and vice versa. Sometimes it looks like it's benefiting the teacher, but it's benefiting the student. And then there are some products that are just benefiting the administration or parents, but just because it's giving them insights into things and it's really adding a lot of workload, but it's not benefiting the classroom and the student learning. So that's the first thing to identify. Who is this benefiting? What is the rationale for the use of such a product? What would be its role in enhancing the student learning process? If this can't be answered, then why are we considering that product? If it cannot enhance your student learning, the learning process, then you should really consider, why am I considering this product? And so on the on each of these, I say, what the rationale for using such a product would be. The when. When could this product fail to enhance my students' education? You should try to answer this for everything, even the products that you would be beneficial. There are places that products can fail, and not having those blind spots can help make the incorporation of that product go more seamlessly. And so you need to identify when can that product fail. So like for my green light, the virtual whiteboard, that product can fail when the student doesn't have a digital tablet, because then they have no way to write on the virtual whiteboard and they have to write with a mouse. Writing with a mouse can be frustrating. Their products can also fail when it's requiring, students to create new accounts and new logins. And they have to go to 2 different places they have to go to Canvas for one thing and go to this virtual whiteboard for another. So there are places that even a good product can fail. Where will adjustments or exceptions be needed? This product may not work for every single student. There may be students where if you use this product, it's not going to work for that student. Or it may be situations where if you use this product, it's not going to work in that specific situation. So we need to make sure we don't have blind spots. This is all about exposing what could our blind spots be as we try to incorporate a tech tool. And so identifying those blind spots are important. Why? Why is this the best option among similar technical products and non-technical products? Definitely consider, why should I go with this tech tool? Compare it to the traditional tools. What is this tech tool giving me that traditional tools don't give me? What is it costing me that traditional tools don't cost me? And so really think about that. The the one thing with the practice problem generators, the so if you think about a practice problem generator, they're like having a solution manual. We like to give, even every textbook has answers in the back of the book to the odd or the even problems. And so that's what the practice problem generator is if they get the problem wrong, it will show them the right answer and the right way to work it. So it's like a digital or a technical version of a solution manual. So that's the comparison to the traditional method. The catch, or why this is better than that traditional method, is that when students have access to those solutions or that solution manual, they give up on problems easier. Sometimes they won't even try the problem. They'll peek at the solution and then try to back their way into that solution. And so coming up with those reasons as to why this tool may be better than what we already have or what we can already do, that can help you identify how to use it and how to teach the students to use it and make sure they use it in a way that's actually going to be beneficial for them. And then the how. How do I implement this product so that it is seamlessly integrated and enhancing the student learning experience? This is where you want to make sure you don't make the assumption that every student is technically savvy. I know we've been in, it's the 21st century technology. These kids now, they are digital natives. These computers and all of that, the internet has been around since their entire lives. It's maybe not true for all of us, but that doesn't mean that they are technically savvy. That doesn't mean you can just put this product in their hands and they're ready to go. And so that's one thing, no matter what the product is, to be aware of. And then noticing the cost. Sometimes these things have a cost. Sometimes they have free versions. You need to try out that free version before you just give it to the students, because sometimes when things are free, they have commercials embedded in them, or they'll show ads, and sometimes those ads aren't things that we want incorporated into our classrooms or into the products that the students have. So when you think about, as you think about your products, really think about, how can I seamlessly integrate this into my course? So for the virtual whiteboard, I wanted a virtual whiteboard that can be integrated into Canvas. The students already have to log into Canvas. So if the virtual whiteboard can be a part of that login, then that makes it one less thing that they have to go to sign into. And so the Lucid whiteboard does that, and that's, I love the Lucid whiteboard. If you haven't started using it, I definitely encourage you to use the Lucid whiteboard. For the AI math tutoring tool. So this isn't just, there's some AI tools out there that they claim to tutor the students and help them figure out the answer without just telling them the answer. And then of course, there's tools out there that will just tell them the answer. When would that product fail? Students don't know what they don't know. The thing with AI is you have to ask it good questions. If you don't ask it a good question, then it can't give you the answer that you're seeking, or it will make assumptions about the answer that you're seeking. And so if you don't know what you don't know, then you can't formulate the question that you need to ask it. And so it will guide you in the way that it feels it should guide you, Um, and then where that fails is that the students don't have the ability to identify that they don't really understand. If I'm showing you how to do something, you're like, okay, I get it. I can mimic that. But then if I put all the tools back on the table, take it all back apart, can you now put it together on your own without mimicking me? And that's where students don't understand the difference between I can follow an example or I can build this solution myself. And that's where the AI tool, that's one of the main reasons I said no to the AI tool. Students just don't have the experience and the wisdom to identify when they are sufficiently understanding something. And when they have access to these types of tools, they don't build the stamina and the problem solving ability to sit with something for a moment and figure it out. They're going to reach for that tool, this right there at their fingertips. They're going to say, okay, well, I can just use the AI tool and it can help me figure it out. They don't get to learn how to figure things out on their own and how to build that problem solving ability. Um, so that's my who, what, when, where, how. To go through a product and make sure that it passes all of the, passes the smell test, it passes all of the, and I'm aware of the potential pitfalls. So it passes everything that I require, so that it is a enhancement to the student learning process. But then I'm also aware of where this product can fail, where this product can be a problem for my students and for me. Um, so some of the pitfalls are things that I want teachers, and that includes the parents. Parents, you're teachers too, because you're teaching your homeschooler either directly or indirectly. So some pitfalls that I want us all to be aware of. Avoid consumerism. I think I made that word up, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's out there somewhere. But it's just like consumerism, where we're just consuming everything. We see something and we need it. When I had my first kid, all these baby products that were out there, I was like, do I really need all of that? And, I'm thinking, okay, and I'm putting all this stuff on my registry, and you get the baby, you get all the products, and you don't even use half of it. Consumerism, the ads and things making you think you need this. Teachers, we get bombarded with ed tech tools saying we need this to enhance our students' learning. We need that, this technical platform. We need, my email box is full of advertisements for tech tools for education. Go through the process. Go through the who, what, when, where, why, how. If you're not willing to go through that process and really vet out a tool, then that tool probably isn't something you should be using. It's not important enough to you to even consider using if you're not willing to vet it out. Who, what, when, where, why, how. So try to avoid that. You don't need all the fancy tools. You don't need all the next email that comes in that says, hey, this is a great tool. It's okay to ignore it. You have permission to delete, swipe left. The next one, this is a quote I found that was perfect for what I wanted to say. It says, time doesn't expand limitlessly. When I say yes to one thing, I must say no to something else. And that is true of us as teachers. We have limited time, especially as teaching parents. We have limited time. So when we say yes to one thing, that means there's something else we're going to say no to. So as you incorporate tech tools, make sure you maintain the proper priorities. What I mean by that is, yes, there are for example, the problem generator that I talked about, that I said use with caution. Teachers can use that type of thing and never look at a student's assignment. That is not what you should do. How do you know how well your students are learning if you're not looking at their assignments, if they're not having to turn their work into you? There is research out there that shows that as technology has been used more and more in mathematics, students' ability to show their work on paper and show how they got their solutions has dwindled. If you can't show your work on paper and show how you got solutions, you can't work harder problems that require multiple steps and multiple pathways. So that's an important part of the process. We can't shortchange that process. So yes, the problem generators, they do allow your students to work limitless problems. They can get as much practice as they need. The problem generator tells the student whether they got it right or wrong, but I require my students to show me how they work the problem. I require my students that if you got it wrong, find your mistake and correct it. And then I require them to turn that work into me. I look at it and I make sure you're using proper strategies to do the assignment. Now, obviously, these tech tools don't require that of a teacher, but that's not something you should say no to. When a parent comes to you and says, my student is struggling in your class, and I just want to know how to help them, you need to have a good understanding of what that student's struggles may be. And you would only know that if you're looking at their work. If you're not looking at their work, you don't know. You just have to say something in general, but you need to be specific to that student. And you get that by looking at their work. So take a look at it. Don't let these tech tools replace you, because they can't do that. They can't give the student that type of feedback. They can only say, hey, this is how the problem should have been worked. So make sure that you keep your proper priorities. And that is that you look at your students' work. That's very important. Okay, here's the other thing. Technology doesn't teach. There's so much research out there right now that is showing this very thing and coming to the same conclusion. Technology does not teach. Students don't learn from technology. Where it shines in helping students review and helping students retain what they've learned. So they've learned it in the class, or they learned it from a live person. Now the technology could help them practice and review, but it can't teach from the beginning. That's where technology does fail. There's plenty of research out there that shows it. And so if you want to find I thought about it, like listing all the research and all that, but really you can just Google technology doesn't teach and all the research will come up if you want to look into that more on your own. But what it has been shown to do is it does help supplement what has been learned. Not because technology is so good at supplementing, right, or anything like that, but it's good at limitless review. It can give limitless problems. If student A needs to work on two-step equations, but student B needs to work on solving proportions, and student C needs to work on writing lines of equations, that's where technology shines. Because one teacher trying to meet those three students where they are, and they're all at different places, that's difficult. But that's where technology can shine, because each one of them can practice exactly what they need with some of those technical tools. And given how the brain learns, this is something else that is being researched a lot these days, is why isn't technology helping the way we thought it would? And there are even ed tech companies that are going out of business because it's not helping the way we thought it would. And one of the things that's coming out of that research is because physically reading and writing is an essential part of the learning process. They have to write it down. Just that act of writing it down is a part of their learning process. And so skipping that part by doing copy paste and all that stuff, or just letting it be on the screen and never writing it down on your paper, skipping that process is also skipping some of the learning process. And that can't be skipped. So we have to be careful with that. Make sure we are not replacing pencil and paper, especially in mathematics. Mathematics is a written language. If you think about it, if I say 4 plus 6 equals 10, those are words. But if I write that on paper, it will look nothing like the words, because it will be numbers and symbols. Mathematics is a written language. It's written in numbers and symbols. We cannot replace physical writing. All right, no need to avoid it like the plague. Just be wise using it. So that's the general gist of it. There's no need to avoid technology like the plague. Be wise in using it, which means there is some things you should avoid, but there are some things that can really enhance student learning as well. Okay, this is especially for parents. This is an opinion, okay? My opinion is that tech monitoring is not snooping. Like some parents feel like if they're monitoring or tracking their child's digital life, that they're snooping on them or they're spying on them. It may be, but it's not wrong in my opinion. Think of it like this. In the physical world, your child gets permission from you to go somewhere. So you know where they're going. Not only do you know where they're going, you know who they're going with. You know what the place is, the environment. So they're going to the mall. You understand what the mall is and the dangers there. They're going to the football game. You understand the football game and the dangers there. They're going to some festival. Oh, no, you can't go to that festival because I understand the dangers there. So, no, you can't go to that festival. Well, we need to be able to do the same type of parenting in the digital world. So that's what I call monitoring. Tech monitoring is I need to know what environments you're exposing yourself to, and I get to say no to some environments. And I get to say, no, you can't go there, or no, you can't be amongst those people, or no, you can't. I get to say that. And so these are some of the tools that I found very helpful as a parent. Um, so these are actually brands because they're things that I found very helpful. Bark is the first one. It doesn't say Bark there, but this first one is Bark. It does cost money, but it's very helpful. It's all encompassing. It monitors Snapchat, all the social media, the cell phone, the text, everything. Norton Family, my kids, they don't like Norton. That's how they say it. Oh, that's that Norton again. Because when they were homeschooled, I used Norton Family because you could set it on school time. So when I said Norton Family on school time, that means on their computer, they could only access a list of websites that I gave it. So during school time, they weren't out there surfing the internet. They weren't out there playing video games. They could do none of that because Norton Family was on and it said, nope, it's school time. You can only be on a website A, B, or C. And so I loved it. They didn't, but it's okay. Google Family, that's a good one for monitoring their screen time and it turns them off. It locks their phone. They're like, okay, you've played, and you can do it app by app. So if there's some game they love to play, and you can lock that game, or you could say you could play that game for 30 minutes a day, and then that game is going to lock. You can lock the entire phone. You can it does it also does all of these have filters also where they can't go to certain websites. You can filter out any type of websites you don't want them to visit. And then also at your router, there are now routers that have parental controls where if they try to visit a website or a certain website, it'll come up on the screen and say something like this is not permissible or whatever. And so you can do that at the router level, which means any device connected to your Wi-Fi won't be able to get past the filter. And so that's very helpful as well. I give my parents a list of websites that students use to cheat in a math class. And so, like with Norton, you can put that on the website not allowed list, and they cannot access those websites. Um, so that has been very helpful. But I want to end with just an acknowledgement that we've been here before. John Napier, one of the best mathematicians or most famous mathematicians, invented the logarithm. He spent 20 years creating his logarithm table. 20 years. And that logarithm table was to make multiplication faster. That led to Napier's bones that we see here, which is like the first calculator. It's kind of like the first calculator as the logarithm table to help them do calculations faster. Imagine if he didn't have to spend 20 years doing calculations. He could have used that great mind to do something else. That's where technology helps us. It gets rid of the mundane things that we could use our great minds to do something else. Those bones ended up or later became the slide ruler. So that's the next generation of them. It became a slide ruler. The next generation of the slide ruler is the calculator. And then the graphing calculator. When calculators first came out, they were said to ruin mathematics. These things are going to ruin mathematics education. These kids aren't going to be able to do anything. They didn't ruin mathematics. They changed it, but they didn't ruin it. So yes, there used to be jobs. If you watched the show Hidden Figures or the movie Hidden Figures, there used to be jobs where people were called computers. Like their job was computer because they were human calculators. Obviously, those jobs don't exist anymore. Things changed, but the people who could do those jobs, they're still valuable. So even though that specific job isn't here anymore, there's still a job that those people can do. And so, yes, calculators were disruptive to mathematics education, but they changed it. They changed it from being almost 100% procedural to being a little bit more conceptual, or a lot more conceptual, maybe. And then from there, from the calculator, we went to the computer. And now this computer has led us to this AI age that is upon us. It's going to change math education. We don't know how yet, but I don't think it's going to destroy it. Just like the calculator, when the calculator came, people were nervous about the calculator too. It didn't destroy math education, it changed it. The same thing will happen now again with AI. In fact, there's even people who changed the way we think. And think about what happened to Socrates, Galileo, Bruno, Hypatia. They changed the way we think. They challenged the way we thought and did things, and all of them were persecuted because that's not how things are supposed to be. People were scared of the change. And so they persecuted some of these great minds. But we made it through. We were okay. We figured out how to incorporate these things without allowing it to destroy us. And we're going to do the same thing again. So that's all I wanted to share. All right. So,
Well, Dr. Riley, once again, I love the way that you are able to speak to things profoundly and practically. And I'm sure there are so many people already that have things that are coming up like, oh, well, what about this? Or what do you think about this? Or I've heard this, or I want to discuss this particular tool. So I'm going to open it up to the group. And hey, let me say a couple of other hellos. I see some more math teachers. So glad you're here, Dr. Mertz and Miss Hacker, and all the other teachers and parents that are here. You are more than welcome to chime in with any reflection on what Dr. Riley has said or an extension beyond that. The floor is yours, audience.
Like to chime in and say that Dr. Riley's been really helpful this past year. I really ran into the AI sticky point this past year. I had my speculations and about my students using them, particular few, and it's not easy to curb that. It's not easy to pinpoint it. And certainly we're not trying to play detective and judge and jury on the students and their families. So I guess my question is, because it is going to permeate all of our subject or content areas if it hasn't already, and we're going to have to find ways to curb to get away from the use or to deter it. What can change about our policy? I guess we can't really get into the homes to do that, but perhaps there could be more of an encouragement from admin with parents or something in a policy or contract about the use of the tools that Dr. Riley mentioned, like the Norton and the Norton and the where they're limiting AI. What can we do on the front end before class begins? What's the recommendation there?
It's a great question. It's one that's been considered. So on the front end, our policy remains, it's written into our handbook, and it will be for the coming year too, that the expectation is that students are not to engage in the use of AI within their Scholé Academy classrooms. That's a standard policy. We know that this is a very rapidly evolving landscape, and we're willing to revisit policy, but that is the policy at present. Um, Having said that, I hear what you're saying, Christina, about like, but how can we get that parent partnership because we can't reach through the screen and monitor and make sure that they're not doing that. And that's always been the case, but AI makes it even more difficult. One practical thing is everybody has the orientation time that you host before your class starts. And you may have, if you've been with us for a little while, you may have remembered last year, um, I had a video recording for you to play at that orientation. And that one was primarily about our handbook policy, about the Matthew 18 principle, and parents speaking directly to instructors as soon as there's a concern. So we keep those lines of communication really open and giving the pep talk about that. Well, I hope you'll find it reassuring, Christina, that part of my pep talk this year is kind of about AI and not just AI, but just the parent partnership in that because we're all shouldering this together. And so to ask them, request that for their active involvement. So for that reason, I really like that, Dr. Riley, you brought up. And here's ways you can do that, maybe utilizing technology to monitor technology. So do you want to chime in on any of that, Francel?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the things that I provide parents with during orientation is, if you use a tool like this, here's a list of websites that I would recommend you block. And so they'll, if they use it, they'll do that. But otherwise, it is hard. It is hard to identify. It's not always hard to identify that a student is using AI for their math homework, but it is often hard to prove it. When a student is writing, like say a paper, it's pretty easy to tell that student didn't write that paper, right? Because they sound so eloquent and they're using words that they don't know the meaning of. But in mathematics, again, it's written in numbers and symbols. So it's not as easy to prove that this student is using it. It's a teacher's intuition. We know what an algebra student looks like when they're solving these types of problems. We know what their work looks like. And we can tell when that work doesn't look like the work of an algebra student. But it's hard to tell a parent or to prove that, this isn't the work of an algebra student because it's intuition based. It's not something where they're using a word that they don't know. That doesn't happen in math because math is written in numbers and symbols. And so that's where Christina is coming from. Like we can't prove, it's hard to prove this. And so that's where really getting parents on board is very important.
That is so right. And I would go so far as to say we can't prove it. There is almost nothing in life that you can prove without any shadow of a doubt. There's always some angle of approach. Well, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but unlikely. And I would just, and thank you, Eric. I look forward to you chiming in. But I would say too that for both parents and teachers, it's the posture of humility with along with the posture of confidence that this is not an accusation. This is an invitation to explore because we're partnering together in the formation of students toward their good end. So I'm not bringing this concern out of an accusation. I'm bringing it out of love. And that love toward the family and the students so that it can be a cooperative approach working together to form them. And in the end, I'll say this to instructors and parents, saying it to myself, saying it in love, that all of us want desperately, or we have that impulse to desperately control an outcome, to prevent visiting this, to prevent activating this, to guide in this way. And I love how you, Dr. Riley, use great, concrete, simple examples. We know what the mall looks like. Find out what that digital world looks like. We know what and you've used these great, concrete examples for us to know, yes, we should parent and teach wisely and with a sense of it is my responsibility. I'm held accountable to understand their environment and work it through. But in the end, all of us, especially if you have kids that are becoming adults, you know that in the end, all of us have to be open-handed before the Lord that I cannot ultimately control this outcome. what this student chooses to do. So there is that measure of vigilance and open-handed trust that we can't we try to say what we see, what we detect, what our intuition tells us, but in the end, if it's resisted, if it's avoided, it's not our job to control that outcome. All right, that was my little sermonette pep talk. um Dr. Riley, you want to chime in, then we'll go back to Mr. Robinson. No, you did. I just saw you unmuted. Okay, Eric, what you got for us? We're listening.
Oh, I was, uh, yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I think saying, which I said repeatedly last year, I've said every year, but more last year than any other year, that, you know, academic integrity is something you committed to, when you agreed to take the class. And so, and I'm just straight with them about the fact that I'm aware that you can get around things. It's always been possible. It's still possible. It's even more possible now than it's ever been. Um, but ultimately, you're undercutting yourself. So, I mean, I say those similar things. Also, uh, a lot of what we do in math is written out symbolically and not with sentences, but we certainly can require sentences. I would just add, if you want to have, uh, if you want to see what someone understands deeply, you can ask them to either write a proof, um, or you can ask them to explain something in paragraphs. And what does that do? It takes the instructor a lot of time to to read. It takes them a lot of time to produce. Um, and if someone hands you something that looks like an expert wrote it, they probably didn't. I mean, that's just almost certain, right? And so it isn't hard, um, in the sense of creating a task that will make it evident whether they know something or whether someone else was telling them something and they were copying and pasting. Uh, but it does take a lot more time to check than it does automated, numeric quantitative answers in a box uh, on a computer screen. So yeah.
Here's a thought that I have that's slightly radical, and I welcome your pushback, instructors, if you feel like it's overly, like if it's impractical. But right now, where we are with our own limitations and where AI and technology is going, I would recommend we do not exhaust ourselves with trying to sniff out any use of it. Should we be attentive to it? And like, and come on, let's be honest. There are so many times where it's like, oh no, 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 no. You can kind of tell, like, this was very likely not an original piece from a student in some way. Great. Do not ignore that. Attend to it, respond to it, address it quickly. But if we become so wrapped up and caught up in trying to sniff it out at all, we will exhaust ourselves, subvert the actual learning process, and disadvantage the students who are really there to learn and really there to engage. So I would say if you're going to use some energy, put that energy toward um, developing the taste and the appetite to accept the challenge rather than take the easy route. And listen, Christ said, broad is the way that leads to destruction, narrow is the way that leads to life. If God incarnate recognized that few there be that will find it, don't think that we can outdo him and get the whole class on board with the glorious route to holiness and righteousness in all things. You're going to have some that there's going to be those that choose to take an easy route, choose to take a dishonest route, and don't hear me saying that not to address it, but don't feel that you're in any way failing or failing to do something well if you can't catch it all into a net and keep everybody on the right pathway. So just a little exhortation. Who else? I think I saw maybe Dixie's hand go up. Miss Hacker, did your hand go up? We're listening.
Yes, good morning. My
Hi.
apologies. I'm at a device without a camera today, but I just want to thank you, Dr. Riley. Excellent job. And Joylyn, always appreciate your comments too. And just kind of have got me thinking. I've been a math teacher for a long time. I'm old. I'm so old that graphing calculators were like new when I was in college. And I just kind of chuckle as I take a look back. My husband, who is fabulous and amazing, but in the corporate world, for his career, he will kind of, it makes me chuckle. He'll be like, it's all because of calculators, anytime there's kind of some issue. And as a math educator, well, wait a minute, they have a place we do is, Fransell explained, some different things now in our mathematics. But it does make me think my own children, they're now young adults and looking at their, potentially growing families. And I just think about even the technology that my husband and I dealt with our children and parenting, what was available to us then and how it's just already so quickly different. So in so many aspects, and I really appreciate Dr. Riley, like it's out there and we don't need to freak out and panic and be afraid and live in the stone ages with technology. Instead, we're just constantly like you have said, we're growing in our learning. And I'm so thankful for things like working with homeschool families, because the assumption is that they've made the choice to join in what we're doing. So, like you've said, they've agreed to these policies. Hopefully, there is that common ground, as opposed to, for example, when I've taught in public school where it's required attendance. And that's not the case here. And so I love it, this excitement of, wait, parents, teachers, like we're on the same page of wanting growth for our students. And I think it's kind of humorous too. One of my sons he's working on his master's, but pointed out, all the math answers are already out there for the level of math that we're doing. Like all the answers are known. And I think that even with writing assignments, like, there have been a lot of papers written on great works of literature. So this idea of that's not the sole purpose. What is our purpose? And we're just so great to always reflect on that and be enriched by that. We've got a greater purpose in Christ and what we're doing here, being a light in the world. And with that first, it doesn't have to be what does X equal or things like that. So I really appreciate the comments. I think they're just spot on and great. Thank you.
Well, speaking of spot on and great, thank you for all your reflections, Dixie. I love that you pointed out that we have great parent partners. Oh my goodness, God bless you, homeschoolers out there, and how you're just taking ownership of this. Don't grow weary, don't give up. It is a wonderful vocation, and we are truly honored to be partnering with you, however we can support and help. And yeah, we work with amazing families. I think another thing that Vixie said, and then I'll invite you, Francel, to chime in on here too, is that the answers are out there. It's not like they're going to come up with something super original, but what are we pointing them to that is beyond that immediate, I'm not trying to get you as a student to just be an answer generator. I'm trying to work with you to cultivate in you a particular way of thinking and problem solving. And as classical educators, we often rehearse what are the transcendental values. We're always rehearsing, truth, goodness, beauty, and the orientation of our soul. And particularly as believers, we, also distill it to loving God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving others. So with those kind of clarifying aims, then you're even putting your practical choices of tech tools through those things. And I'm really grateful, Dr. Riley, that you kind of walked us through, hey, here's how you can look at that, the who, what, when, where, how, why, in really practical ways, taking that all toward the end of soul orientation, a disposition and an appetite we want in students to love what is true, what is good, and what is beautiful. And if instead it is feeding an appetite to merely love what is self-serving, what is easy, what is false, though, then that's when you can kind of vet that tool and say like this isn't helping the orientation of their soul. Um, I see that hand, Miss Whitney Bull. I'm ready to hear what you have. Let's see, you're unmuted, but your voice isn't coming through. Wait, let's try it again. Is anybody else hearing Whitney but me? No. Okay, you may have to do a little troubleshooting. And then if not, I mean, it's going to be hard, but you could put it in the chat if we're not able to hear you audibly. That's right. Call in that tech support. Y'all testify. Don't you know that we all get the tech support from our own kids? Oh, well, while Whitney's working on that, Dr. Riley, did you want to add anything about that? You know, what we're trying to get students toward, because I love how you speak to the roller skate analogy and other things that, you may zip along initially, but you're going to hit that point. So you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, with the students, I use the proverb of, it's not the biblical proverb, but a worldly proverb of, if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat every day. If you give a man a fish, he'll eat today, but if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat every day. And so that's where I tell my students, sit with the problem, struggle with it, get through it. Don't reach out for that crutch or reach out for that help so quickly, because that's giving you the fish. And so, yeah, you'll get that problem done. But if I give you if I give you problem on the same content tomorrow, would you be able to do it? And so you really need to learn how to fish so that you can solve all the problems every day. And I give them stories from my past of when I run into different situations of people cheating and what the outcome was, and just helping them understand it from a character building standpoint. That helps. Like I had a situation where I felt like 70 to 80% of my class used AI on an assignment. I had a discussion with them, a character building discussion about this AI thing. And after that, I think only about 20, 10 to, when I say 20%, we're still only talking about like 1 to 2 people because the classes are only 15, but only about 1 to 2 people kept using AI. Like, just talk to them about it. They'll get it.
So good. Amy, Miss Travis, then we'll try Whitney again.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Riley. So many takeaways for me from this time as a mom and also as a teacher. So I really appreciate it. The first thing I wrote down was similar to what you were just talking about, that I love that phraseology of our children are digital natives, but not necessarily tech savvy. And though they are in some respects, I'm trying to not frustrate my students and my children with expecting things that they're not ready for, whatever that looks like, right? Physically with the technology, but then also with the environment, like you were saying. And you said something that I wrote down: build stamina to sit with something and reason it out. And that's what you were just discussing, that ability to sit with something for a while, that instant gratification that technology gives us so often. And as much as I point my fingers at my students or my children, I point the finger back at myself and say, how often do I Google it, or something, rather than sitting myself. And so modeling that when my child comes to me with a question, well, let's sit. Well, can we think of any scripture? Can we, and spend some time building stamina, as you said. And so I love that. I appreciate it. And all the practical things that you shared as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Miss Whitney, were you able to figure out the audio? No? Shucks. Okay. Well, we are eager if you want to put anything in the chat that if you're able to communicate your thoughts. Um, Similar to what Amy brought up, and I wonder if you want to elaborate on it even further, Francel. I wrote down that you said you find your mistake and correct it. You find your mistake and correct it. As you know, I wasn't a math teacher, not a math teacher, but I was humanities teacher in writing. And one of the things that I found myself doing is naturally you're grading papers and you're making all the editing remarks about what needs to change, capitalization, punctuation, sentence structure, phraseology, whatever it may be, right? But I had been teaching this and I found myself like perpetually correcting. And then I thought, wait a second, maybe there's something else that can be done here. And I think I've mentioned this before, that I started on the first pass or the first draft, instead of making the corrections, y'all know the 3 lines to capitalize underneath the letter, instead of making the correction itself, I started using mathematical symbols. I started using numbers outside in the margin on the lines. How many mistakes I found in this line? I found 1 mistake here. I found 2 in this line. I found, 1 here, etc. And at first I did it line by line. Then I did it sentences. Then I even moved to paragraphs. 3 mistakes in this paragraph. And then hand them back. Now you go, you find. What did I see that you didn't catch on the first pass? I was amazed at how they began to actually catch their own errors. And then, of course, what is that going to do? It's going to refine later so that they're not so readily like, hey, let me hand this in without wait. And then I would even get to the point where I'd say, okay, is that right? Papers are due today. You're going to go, turn them in on my desk. This was in a physical location. Then I'm like, oh, but wait. Instead of that, let's take the first 10 minutes of class and you're going to one more pass, read through your work and find at least 2 more things that should change. Well, what? I already did it. I'm on a final draft. I guarantee you, you are not turning in a perfect paper. Get it one step closer. So that idea of finding your own mistakes, what does that do for the learning process? How does that assist the learner? How does that help them grow toward mastery? And what are we amputating or what are we hurting if we don't allow them to look and find their mistakes? I present that question to you all now. Okay, Dr. Riley, I let you chime in first.
Hey, yes, this is a big one because reflection. It requires them to reflect on what they have written. And that is such an important part of the process, is to reflect. Reflect on your answer. Once you get to algebra and beyond, you could have done all the math correctly, all the calculations correctly, but still have the wrong answer because you misinterpreted the problem. But when you reflect on that answer, you would say, oh, it doesn't make sense for this answer to be negative because it's supposed to represent the number of people. And there can't be -6 people, or there can't be 1.5 people. So it causes them to develop the habit of reflecting on their answers. That's the main thing. But then the second thing, or maybe it's even better or just as good, is that what I tell them to do is, as you're making your corrections, think about what type of mistakes you're prone to making, because it's likely you're prone to make similar types of mistakes, and then you can be more aware of those in the future so that you don't continue making them. One of the tools that I use, the problem generator, is set up so that you have to get 3 problems correct for this particular skill, and they get 6 chances to get 3 problems correct. And what I have found and what I share with the students is, those of you who don't find your errors and fix them, you make the same errors over and over again. So whereas one student may only have to work 4 problems because they learned from their error on their first problem because they found it and fixed it, you had to work all 6 because you kept making the same mistake over and over. And I take off for that. If they don't find and fix their error, I take off for it, even if they got 3 correct. So they still don't get a 100. They lose points. But those are the two main reasons for me.
So good. I had a university professor who would say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my comments on the first 2 pages of your paper. I'm going to read the entire thing. I'm going to grade the entire thing. But in terms of my editorial remarks, I'm going to do the first 2 pages. The remaining 10 or whatever it may be, you take the principles I've identified and you find how that applies in the rest of the paper. So similarly, like, don't just correct an isolated error, find the pattern of your error making and correct that. And then I submit to us instructors, teachers, and parents, how is that discipleship? How is that character building? Right? Because it's more than just an isolated thing. This is where is my orientation? Kind of the angle of my soul. Okay, Amy, I want to hear from you again.
I was just going to add, I love, I don't know if it applies in math, but in writing, we'll often do a day of peer review on some of our essays and that type of thing. So, of course, we want individually to have this process of writing and rewriting, but I have found that it is so helpful. And I love Scholé Academy's environment of encouragement and virtue and all of that, because the children have come and they are not criticizing each other. It becomes this beautiful, encouraging environment where they're saying, I think this word needs capitalized, or perhaps we can fix this sentence. And not only then is it helping that student, and they all share their writing, but then you see them come to the table the next time having corrected those things that maybe they saw on someone else's and that type of thing. So anyway, it creates a beautiful environment of learning, but then also helping each other.
So good. And so in keeping with what Whitney was able to put in the chat, which I think is just such a good exhortation and a reminder to all of us. Um, I'll just say this for the recording, I'll reread it. She said, I'm a homeschool parent that outsources several subjects to Scholé, and my kids take the guidance, the rules, the directions, etc. of the Scholé instructors very seriously. So if you tell them no AI or no looking at your textbook or no using Google, they will absolutely comply. So do not underestimate those pep talks. So, yay, high five, Whitney. Thank you for adding that to that exhortation, because that's exactly right. And I will say, side note, all of us know as parents what we've told our kid 100 times, but somebody else, another mentor in their life, will bring it, and it's like, woo! It hits in another way. So that's another beauty of this trust that we have been given, to be that parent partner in this. So absolutely exhort. And then as I think as Amy, you're pointing out, it is such a beautiful peer atmosphere, peer pressure in a good way of like, how can we make each other better? How can we encourage one another? How can I look at myself and see what I could change based on what I've overheard in this way? So those are all really, really good observations. Who else has something to add to the discussion? Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you, Dr. Riley, for any final thoughts that you may want to share or takeaways that you want us to have. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I think just that, no, they told my mom, this is just a fad, it's going away. There's people who believe that about AI. I don't believe that about AI. I don't believe it's just a fad, it's going away. I know right now in corporate America that it has already been incorporated in many of their systems and processes. And the people who are using it are more effective and efficient than the people who are not. And in corporate America, efficiency wins. So if you're a more efficient employee, you get to stay. The less efficient employees have to go. And so that's happening right now in corporate America. My husband is a manager where he works, and he's like, yeah, I use this AI tool and it's made what I do so much faster. And what that is doing, it is replacing some of the lower level jobs. Some of the technology already had that effect where, they'd say there's no entry level engineering job, there's no entry level accounting jobs, et cetera, et cetera. That is because of technology already. Because some of those things that we used to have entry level people do, we don't have them do it anymore because we do it on computer. So we don't need people sitting there with papers and filing stuff and all that good stuff. So there is an impact that we cannot deny. And it's not all positive, and we cannot deny that either. But we cannot pretend that it's going away. And we cannot pretend that it's not going to have an impact. It is. It already has. Let's just be wise about it. Let's be wise about how we advise our students, how we advise our children, how we advise each other, how we incorporate these things into our classrooms, how we incorporate these things into our home. We just have to be wise about it. Even with my own kids, I did not take technology out of their hands. I taught them how to use it. I parented them. I told them the dangers of it, and I showed them the dangers of it. Even in the video games, parents, this is something I had to learn, and so maybe I can help you if you've got young ones. In some of those video games, they can talk to other people, like real people, and they can give them information and share private things and phone numbers. You want to make sure they can't do that type of stuff as well. But so what I'm saying overall is lock in, be involved, know what your kids are doing, know what your students are doing, because whatever I'm saying today is going to change. Technology changes so quickly. Something that advice that you may get today may not work in 6 months because it's changed so quickly. So just stay locked in on it, stay in tune with it. Don't ignore it because it's here to stay, but just be wise about it. That's it.
There, Mr. Robinson, you want to add anything?
Yeah. My my brother-in-law, one of them, used to work at Google. He works for someone else now, but he's a computer programmer, and he grew up. He's like 7 years younger than I am, so he grew up uh, um, and did his thing in a relatively unorthodox way. Just did computer programming kind of independently, figured stuff out. Didn't do college, and got a really fantastically high up kind of position at as a computer programmer for Google for a while, and has done other worked for other companies as well. And he is engaging with AI, and he's consulting with some companies now on it's very meta, not to be like the meta the company, but like it's engineering is what's happening. He says it's we in some sense we no longer need programmers. What we need is programmer architects, people who know how to make the architecture for programming, and then the AI fills in the specific little code bits for you. That's what's happening at this point. And places that don't do that are going to die. I mean, they're just flatly going to die if they don't follow that model, because it is extremely more efficient. And it's not just faster. It's not just that they're getting the same results. It's that if you have people that have developed the problem solving abilities, which is what we're working on in math and in all of the subjects, if they have the problem solving abilities to interpret, to analyze, to synthesize, to build a framework in which AI can operate, essentially giving little AI bots very specific little tasks to accomplish along the way, they are freed to not be doing what that guy told us about with the pre-slide rule stuff was doing for his 20 years. Instead, it's doing it in like 2.5 minutes, right? And that's extremely powerful and has the potential to do great things and terrible things, like every tool that we've ever made as humans. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's not that math becomes or English or anything becomes unimportant. It's that uh, if you want to thrive in in that field or in fields that use it, which are going to basically be all of them, um, you have to become a problem solver. So yeah.
I love that we've ended here with this recognition of what you were emphasizing, Dr. Riley. It's not going away. It's very unlikely that it's going away. And then, Mr. Robinson, what you added to that is that the jobs out there, um, the ones that are going to survive are the ones that harness it and use it, right? So then that leads us back to our question of, and Scholé Academy's policy is students don't use it. And that might lead one to say, well, how are we preparing them for the life and the future that they will know if we don't use it when we're saying it's not going away and it will be all that is used? And I would say simply that in these school age K to 12 years, these are uniquely formative times. And this encourages us to go back to the first podcast we listened to that, when Ash White led us, that podcast where he talked about the innovation bargain. Look what you can do with this tool, number one. Then two, look what you no longer have to do as a result of this tool. And then number three, oh, but look what you're no longer able to do. And then number four, and now look at this new thing you must do as a result of adopting this new technology. And so this cycle, so recognizing that this is the case, that yes, it's an extraordinarily powerful tool that will enable us or enable the human machine to move at an even more rapid rate. Um, Recognizing that that is the case, what are we doing in our students' lives, in their hearts, in their minds right now to anchor them for um, a a life that is oriented toward the true, the good, and the beautiful. Not so that they're ill-equipped, not so that in the end, in some career that they take on, they can't pick it up and learn those tools. But if they start now in these early formative years, then we are going to be subverting and I believe, hurting some things that they need to have the ability to do without those tools. And that's not an extremely articulate way to put it, but for the time being, we all said it's rapidly changing, evolving, and so forth. This is where we stand right now, for students in their lives right now. And we hope and trust that it will equip them to be able to wisely, as Dr. Riley just kept emphasizing today, how to wisely discern how to use the tool. But if you use it too young and too early, there is no wisdom in the use. There is no wisdom in the deployment. So we'll continue to be a sanctuary, like a little nature preserve. There are places that cities get all kind of built up and we're grateful for them, but sometimes you need the little nature preserve where you really experience some authentic life that then you can go out into those more developed areas.
Can I jump in there? It's like the calculator. We give Algebra 2 students, pre-cal students, they can use all the calculator all they want to, but we don't give it to fourth graders.
You see what I mean? This is why Dr. Riley, just these little pithy, clear-minded expressions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Riley, for all that you brought and prepared and shared with us. So much great food for thought. Thank you, friends, for joining in. Thank you, Amy, for your comment. She said monitoring the tool suggestions. As a reminder, we don't need to be also tech consumerist. I love that idea. At the same time, there's a great encouragement to move forward with our God-given discernment to use what's before us for His glory. What a wonderful discussion. Amen, Amy, Travis. Thank you. And thanks to everybody who is here. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for the discussion on Brave New World. All right. Thank you all, friends. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.